Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second day. What I'm going to talk about today is something that we don't think about enough in emerging technology, which is how do you actually get people on board? And because I've been giving a variety of this talk for, about 2 years and building on it and trying to make it more useful for UX researchers and designers, I decided to cover a topic that's become really important, which is we can build things and create designs to ease the onboarding experience, but should we? So we'll be covering that after we go through a lot of the good patterns and some bad patterns in the onboarding experience. So let me get a feel for the room. How many of you have actually built an onboarding experience? Raise your hand. Okay. Did you feel like you did well the first time? No? Okay, yeah, same feeling. Did you get to test it and improve it? Let's hope so. So how many of you got to test and iterate and improve the onboarding experience? Fantastic. Good. You'll see that's one of the recommendations. Do we have the... It is on. Am I out of range? Maybe. My lucky clicker is not clicking. Yeah, maybe if this doesn't work in 10 seconds, let's go for your lucky clicker, or set it up with the... Go back into presentation mode. I'll just make do. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so this is a little bit about me. You already saw the punchline. True story. First movie I took our oldest daughter to was Finding Nemo. And she was all of 4 years old. She saw this, she could read, and so she said, "Daddy, are you in all the movies?" So of course, I said, "Yes, Daddy is in all the movies." And it only took her about a year or two to say, "You're not in Frozen." So let's talk about designing the onboarding experience. Simple definition would be the process of getting people to adopt your application or service. Seems pretty straightforward. It's good enough. It's a good enough operationalization for us to go with. I think maybe I'm getting too far away. Okay. So, lucky clicker, not being good to me today. That's okay. Great. So, the key point here is that when you're onboarding the user, you're trying to get them to like and want to use the product. In economic terms, you want them to derive value. Now, cute puppy, cute baby, what does that have to do with value? Let's do a definition of value. Here is a yada yada definition. The worth of a good or service is determined by people's preferences and the trade-offs they choose to make given their scarce resources. Okay, what is value really? Basically, it's something that you derive a benefit from. So yes, they're adorable, but we also derive value from a puppy or a baby. So in the dismal science of economics, how do you think economists think about value of a baby or a puppy? And yes, they do quantify value for these things. Does anyone have any guesses? Yes, yeah, they're adorable. Yeah, will they bring joy to your life? And believe it or not, economists, especially behavioral economists, do actually quantify things like emotional experience. Thanks. So how important is onboarding? Let's go on. Thanks. It quite literally is a matter of survival for an application or a website or a service. The average app loses, 95% of its user base within a few months. So that is kind of you've got one shot here to get it right, except in rare cases where there's such incredible demand for something. Here's a great quote from the authors of the study. Users try out a lot of apps, but decide which ones they want to stop using within the first 3 to 7 days. What does that tell you? You've got one chance. There's this idea of the aspirational app or the aspirational tool. We'll get more into that, but just to get another feel for your experience, how many of you have seen an app or read about an app and said, oh, I gotta load that. That's gonna make my life so much better in uncountable ways. And then it just kind of doesn't because you stop kind of using it. Yeah, it happens. So let me show you a simple adoption abandonment model. This is not heavy science here. It is literally just a graph of perceived value against time investment. And the idea behind this is simple. Users are constantly and consciously, I would argue, assessing the offering on 2 dimensions, time investment against the perceived value. So, if they feel that they're getting value and they're above that curve, they'll adopt. If not, probably abandon, and it'll end up on the last screen of your phone, kind of on that zone, that last screen where you kind of dump things, or maybe if you're on Android, it ends up back into the pile of misfit apps that don't make it onto the home screen. And this is what I alluded to before. Deriving value is an aspirational activity. We adopt new behaviors and tools because we hope it will improve some aspect of our lives. Lucky clicker. Here's a really good quote. People don't buy products, they buy better versions of themselves. Are you listing the attributes of the flower, or are you describing how awesome it is to throw fireballs? So, obviously in reference to Super Mario. If you notice though, this is just another version of that idea that when people buy a drill, they're not looking for a 2-inch drill bit, they're looking for a 2-inch hole in the wall. Right? So don't sell them on the attributes of the bit. Sell them on how well it makes the thing they want, which is the hole in the wall. If people feel like they're nearing the better version of themselves, they'll keep using your solution. But if it feels like the path is too long and winding, what'll they do? Abandon. It feels like too much. Out of curiosity, does anyone have any application that they've loaded in the last few days and feel like it's going to end up on that last screen? Anyone? Yes. Go ahead. Did you have your hand up? So what is it? Okay. Anyone have one particular one that you know you just aren't going to use and you want to? Yes. Okay. Delete. So, this is where onboarding plays a crucial role. Now, in your experience, it sounds more like the real-world encounter you had with them mediated the onboarding process. So that's a little bit of a different one, but I can see how, oh, this might make things easier. Oh, I'm never going to fly them again, forget it. So, what I'd like to do now is talk about some common onboarding patterns, and I'll make sure that this is available on whatever site we're using to provide the presentations. It's like I'm being trained. I can't get too far away from... Yeah. So, this is a very old one and not such a good one. For lack of a better name, let's call it the modal stepped tutorial. So what does it do? It steps you through how it works. This is actually something that Google put out 5 or 6 years ago. So yes, it's old. It was the original Google News app. It was called Google Currents. They killed it pretty quickly. And I think you can kind of tell why they may have killed it, because I doubt they got high adoption from this. So this is what first popped up after you loaded it. It's shockingly amateurish in its design, which is not what you'd expect from Google, but maybe 5, 6 years ago, yeah. But what else does it do? What does it not do? It takes you out of context. It provides you with way too much information, and so you're stuck looking at it going, wait, how am I going to remember any of this? This is not going to help me. Here's another pattern. First run callouts. So, these are probably better than being completely out of context, like a modal step tutorial. It draws your attention to key features while you're in the context of the application, but most of the time it kind of isolates them and doesn't let you play with it. It just kind of demonstrates them, right? And then there's a key question that kept coming up as I was cataloging these onboarding experiences. How do you see it again if you wanted? So we're going to return to this. Keep that in mind. Here's another one. This is another first run call out example. But what if I just want to explore now and see this later? Oh, thank you. Maybe if we have a ball and chain and I can only go 8 feet or 5 meters, whatever. So, how many of you have skipped through that opening video tutorial? Because you just want to get in there, right? That's human nature. That was 80% of you. Yes, that's how we want to do things. Now, related to this is the new feature call out, which is, again, it's onboarding for new features. It's useful. Again, how do I get back to seeing that? How many of you use Trello? T-R-E-L-L-O. Okay, great. So, you've seen Taco, the Trello dog, right? What does Taco do when there's new features? Yes, so I don't know why I'm not showing the example after 3 times doing this. So in Trello, when there's new features, Taco, who's their mascot puppy, I believe it's actually a real dog, but they've got a cartoon dog, and when he pops his head up over the global navigation, that's your indication that, hey, there's new features, and you can click on him. If you move away, his head goes down. If you mouse over him, it pops back up, and it's irresistible. It's absolutely irresistible. You will click on it, and then it will tell you the new features. And I don't remember offhand if you can come back to Taco. I think you can. You can? Great. Okay. So, this is one I just grabbed a couple of days ago because I just noticed it, and it's nice to have kind of new examples. I believe if I just click, yay. So what's happening here? They showed me a notification. Now they're going to talk to me about what's different. They're talking about content blocking. Okay. Oh, now they're showing me how to turn on and off blocking. So notice that they're not just showing me, they're letting me do. So I am actually, that's me, enabling and disabling blocking. What does this mean? This means there's a much higher probability I'm going to remember. So this is a good pattern. Still don't know how to return to that tutorial if I wanted to, but at least now I know there's a thing. Maybe it was that one, maybe it was that one, maybe that one. I don't remember, but I know I can just click one of them until I get the same thing. Video tutorials. Oftentimes a lot of people in research will say, you know, multiple channels is much more useful, and you know what, this is the same problem as before. Just let me get to the functionality. I might want to look at this though after I start digging into it. Here's something nice. And now we get to answer this question with a good example. So, not surprisingly, this is a prototyping tool. I didn't want to take all the examples from tools we use, but in this case, it was a great example. So this is Proto.io. Look what they have in their left nav. Getting started video. And look at this. They've got a new features navigation item with what? And what do you do to badges? Right. I think there are two types of people in the world, generalizing incredibly broadly here. There's people like my wife who has 10,000 and something notifications on her email tray and her phone, and it drives me crazy. And can I please just clear those? She goes, no, but it's a badge and you have to clear it. And then there's people like me who just have to just whack all the badge moles. That was made for us. Contextual assistance. So it's good in theory, but oftentimes it's not so good in practice. And this actually relates to some uses of artificial intelligence, which is they're trying to predict what you're doing and why and helping you. And for those of you who are a little bit older like me, you might remember getting this in a very old version of Microsoft Word, where if you wrote, "Dear so-and-so," oh, it looks like you're writing a letter. Can I help? No, get the hell out of my way. I'm writing a letter now. Now we get into some interesting patterns that really try to hook some fundamental, you could call them capabilities, preferences, flaws in human nature and human behavior. Gamification and social comparison. So what are these? Gamification and social comparison, they trigger people's desire to either complete a process or to earn achievements. And they can be really effective. However, if they're not done well, and we'll define well, they can backfire. And they can actually cause people to abandon, it'd be more likely for them to abandon. So here you can see this is part of the Stack Exchange set of services called UXSEA. It tells you reputation is how we thank you. You can earn upvotes. Ooh, imaginary karma. Cool. Earn badges for helpful actions. Ooh, sounds like the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. I'm going to be helpful. So it's engaging both your desire to become an expert and earn imaginary karma, but as well to earn credit for helping. So I stepped through it, and I went through the first of the activities, and I got a badge. Yay! I'm informed. It's kind of damning me with faint praise, but that's fine. This is all for the example. Another pattern is social facilitation, which again engages our desire to essentially be like others, learn from others, feel like part of a community. This example is from a US, and I believe it's some other countries, tax preparation program called TurboTax. So what do we see here? And this is just the left side. So this is the left rail. The application only goes about that far. So we're talking, there's about a third of the page devoted entirely to onboarding and really cementing the relationship with the user. So let's deconstruct this for a bit. We've got the annoying stock art, which we can ignore. Get expert help. Ooh, that's a really good call to action. Access FAQs, IRS documents, or experts. Live community, someone circled it. I don't know why that helps me understand that it's live, but it did draw my attention. Tap into the collective intelligence of millions of TurboTax users, and then search or ask a question. And then what do they do here? They actually surface the top user questions. Now, I think it's an interesting question as to whether these are truly the top user questions or whether these are the top draws when they tested. Do I care? Maybe not. If this is going to draw someone in, it doesn't really matter if they're the top questions, as long as they're the top draws to engage you. Okay, so what are the main takeaways from these patterns? And then we'll go deeper. Let the user return to the onboarding content later. Incent new users by showing them what's new, or at least telling them, hey, there's some new stuff here. Contextual assistance is great in theory, but it's hard in practice because it's very hard to predict what people's motivations are and what their state of mind is. Gamification and social comparison can increase motivation, but they're costly. It's basically an entire subsystem of an application that you're building when you're creating gamification or social comparison. So if your organization is thinking of it, just remember it's expensive from a technical point of view and from a design point of view, frankly. Social facilitation requires the critical mass that you saw in TurboTax, or else it's going to suffer from this kind of empty store or empty shelf phenomenon. So I got this far about 3 years ago, and I decided, you know what this needs? We need some principles that underlay these patterns. So I'm going to go through all 10 of these. I've shaded them out here so it doesn't look like an eye chart. We'll step through them one at a time. One of the key principles that underlays the patterns that we saw is present a clear value proposition. It seems deceptively easy. It's not. So let me show you an example of a clear value proposition. This is from one of my old junky Android tablets. The application is actually from Microsoft, and it's simply a scanner, a document scanner. Here's one else. So, save and share, save in any format you need if you can't read it in the back. It's showing you what to do. And that's it. That's a great statement of the value proposition of this application. It didn't overcomplicate things. It said, hey, you can scan from your mobile phone. I happen to be running this on a small tablet. I think it was a 7-inch. So it kind of assumed I was using a phone, but you could still scan with the 7-inch tablet. Here's another clear value proposition. Read and write the stories that matter to you. As an onboarding experience, and we're going to look at Medium a bit more because they have some not so great examples, but as far as this principle, that's fantastic. It's clear, I understand what the value is to me, and I'm going to keep going. This is a few years old. I hope they've improved this. I haven't looked at it because, frankly, I was so turned off when I opened up the Amazon Kindle browser a few years ago that I don't think I've opened it since. But what happens when you're on a Kindle is that you can download Chrome or Firefox, but they also have the Silk browser. And when you first open it up, I'm not kidding, this is the opening screen, which begs the question, why would I use this when I'm already familiar with Firefox, I'm already familiar with Chrome, and where's the value? I don't see it. Okay, engage emotional and aspirational motivations. We talked about this and how we are creatures of wanting to improve, and so of course a principle would be engage that desire. So here's an aspirational appeal. This is from Evernote. It's kind of losing popularity because they've made some odd choices regarding pricing and product positioning. But look at how well they present your better self. It starts out kind of pedestrian. Take notes. Create notes to capture and update information about clients and leads. Okay, that's a little aspirational. Now when we get here, stay productive. View, edit, and search your notes on any device. Keep all of your information in one place and then share with colleagues. So this is clearly saying this will make your work life better. You'll be a more efficient, better all-around person. And here's an example using a video pattern of talking all about themselves and not about you and your better self. And hopefully the sound will work. We've got the annoying stock music. So look what they're talking about. Resize multiple objects. Rotation. Yay. Oh, I can flip it? Here comes the crescendo. I cut it off there because I was going crazy. Anyway, so what did you see there? It was all about them and their features, right? So, okay, maybe if you were a hardcore user and you were asking for those things and these were on your feature request submissions, fantastic. But for a new user, does that help? Not so much. Doing is better than showing or telling. So here's an example of not really doing, but really close. So again, from the Android tablet, this is a news reader, and it's got the ghost finger saying, swipe for the next news feed. And it'll keep doing that until I dismiss it. I think I do it 2 or 3 more times. And then there we go. I've got content. So that was kind of neat. It showed me how to use it. And this also fulfills another pattern, which is avoid the empty store. We'll get more into that. Here's a really good example from a tool that lets non-visual graphic designers create banners and other pieces of art. Before I even started, do you remember the time investment idea and value? What are they saying here? All I have to do is invest 23 seconds and I'm going to get that. I'm willing. If you saw this, you would be willing. So you're in the interface now, and I honestly don't know whether this is just a clever video that is overlaying the UI or if they're actually automating the UI. I suspect it's a video, but it's well done. So they show you that's how easy it is. Now it's your turn, and then it reverts to the UI as you're ready to use it. Okay, so here's showing and telling and not doing at warp speed, another negative example. I know many of us use WordPress, and I love it, but I looked at this a few releases ago and realized that their money could have been better spent elsewhere other than this. And yes, that's supposed to be the sound of an old-timey record.
WordPress 4.5. Coleman, named for jazz legend Coleman Hawkins. Streamlines your workflow, whether you're writing your content or building your website. With responsive previews in the customizer, you don't need your phone to check out your site on the mobile web. Just use the layout toggles to preview your website on different size screens. While you're there, stop by the site identity settings.
You getting all this?
And, if your theme supports it, add a logo to your website. We've made subtle changes in the editor that will improve your writing experience. Now, when you click to insert a link, a field appears in line, allowing you to insert a URL, whether it's on your site or elsewhere on the web. And this release sees the introduction of even more formatting shortcuts to keep you typing and improve your flow. Enclose your text in backticks to turn it into code. or add 3 dashes to insert a horizontal line. And that's just a glimpse at WordPress 4.5, a release focused on making it easier for you to write and to publish. WordPress 4.5, for a more streamlined experience.
Yeah. You got all that? Because there will be a quiz. Let's go to the next one. Minimize friction and barriers. Now, we know this from a general design point of view. It's even more critical for onboarding. So let's jump back to mock-ups and give you the ultimate example of removing friction and barriers. So this is a short video of what it's like to come to mock-ups straight from the landing page. How many of you use this tool? I don't think it's incredibly popular. Okay, you got one. Yeah. Anybody else? Has anyone tried it? Great, okay. I don't work for them. I'm not getting money for this, but they do a good job of getting you into the product. Watch this. So this is me entering in the URL. There's their conversion page. Try it now for free. You expect to go through a dumb sign up. I'm in the product. I'm in a sandbox. Wow. Now, could there be any fewer barriers than this? I don't think so. So there I am, messing around. All right. Did I skip one? Yeah, no, we're good. Okay, now let's talk about Medium again. So remember, barriers, we're talking about friction. So they had a great value proposition. Now I'm psyched to read stories and maybe even write some. Except they've got the old sign-up flow with an out-of-band authentication flow. And so this is what you have to go through after that opening screen. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, go check your email, jump out of the application. And how distracted are we on our phones? Yeah, what are the chances I'm going to come back? When I get to my email and I see that, and I see 5 other emails, and 2 of them are about a project I'm working on, am I going to follow up? I don't know if they time out the authentication link, but if they did, that would be a mistake. I think we're on 5. I finally can get in. And now it starts asking me about notifications. I get that. There are good reasons to provide notifications from an application, but you don't have to ask right then. And finally I can get to this one. And I'm in a story that I want to read about. Okay. Stock the shelves, avoid the empty store. Now, I'm going to guess about a quarter of you have used InVision. Yeah, how many have used InVision? About a quarter. Okay. Before you actually signed up, did you notice this? The sandbox with the 3 examples where you could go in and play? Fantastic. This is a fantastic onboarding pattern. You got to go in, they provided you with content from 3 different types of projects, and you could actually save these, and I believe the flow was, you mess around, you can't break anything. Oh, if you want to save one of these and version it, then they push you into a sign-up. Here's an example from not a content creation tool, but another content consumption tool. I hope if I touch the trackpad. So, I'm launching Flipboard for the first time. No sign up, no nothing. They do give me a little bit of a first run call out. That's great. But what's here? Content. Now, most of us aren't surprised at that, but wait till you see an example that doesn't do that. So here's Pocket. another news reading app. First screen, your list is empty. I'm going to scold you. You're bad. Your list is empty. Oh, but all right, they're giving me some instructions, but okay, save. So I'm clicking on these 2 calls to action. Email me instructions. Why? You've got all this empty space on the screen. Why? So I'm looking at this, and I'm going, this is just a big Japanese rock garden of nothingness. Why did they do this? Okay, so I found some path, suggested people to follow. What's the problem here? Can I make an informed decision? Not really. And why 99? Why not 1,000? Why not 10? Why not put these people in there in the first place? Why make me do this? They could have avoided this whole scoldy, empty store phenomenon. Don't ask the user for a commitment before the user is ready, both in tech and in life. Okay, so let's go to mock-ups again. And the key here is that this is about, I would say, 45 seconds after I first started playing. So I go on, I play, I move a button, I get rid of the instruction text, I move some stuff around. Ooh, there's some controls. Maybe I'll drag a date picker out here. Okay, I don't know what that arrow, oh, okay, that was just an illustration. How about some nav? I'd like, ooh, yes, let's put a horizontal menu out there. I can, all right, I'm good with this. And then, where do we have a big call to action? Right there. And here it is. At least it's on the same page. But, yeah. And I think we're all familiar with that pattern of pushing you towards what marketing considers the most attractive option. This is interesting because just like Medium, there are good examples and bad examples in the same app here. So Google News gives me a good reason for tracking my location. Why would I let you do that? Oh, to show local news and weather. All right, I'll let you deliver that incremental value. What's this next one? Google would like to send you notifications. They're telling me what notifications are, but not why I would want it from them. Now, a developer actually explained to me that this is a stock message, and at least in this version of iOS, it can't be changed. I still don't think it's good, and I think it should be changeable, because frankly, iOS and the iOS ecosystem is letting applications shoot themselves in the foot and probably depressing take-up of notification enabling. Anything that seems like it comes out of the novel 1984 is a definite no. So when I see the words continuously upload your contacts, I kind of worry. Leverage social comparison and gamification, but don't be cheesy. Meaning don't make it fake looking, don't make it just something that's too pushy. So going back to Stack Exchange, badging and reputation, again, they're rewards. They motivate you. What's interesting is that I couldn't really find any anti-patterns, and I think I know the reason why. Because when these patterns are used and they're bad, they're pulled really quickly. I haven't seen any bad ones in the wild because I just think they're yanked. Does anyone have any examples of a poor gamification or social facilitation onboarding pattern that I want to look at? That we all want to look at? Yeah. So I did suggest some examples. Have any of you ever edited a Wikipedia article? You have. Okay, there's one. Anybody else? How fast did your edit get erased? Same day. Me too. So the issue there is that it's intimidating. You took the chance, I took the chance, but there's this whole idea of the elite. And I don't know how much you all use Amazon, but they've got this idea, they've got reviewers for products, but then they've got in their kind of oldest business line the trusted reviewers and the most popular reviewers for books and movies. And there's been several times where I finished a book and I've wanted to leave a review, but then I look at the quantity and the quality of the reviews and their rankings, and I say, I don't want to play in this space. I'm intimidated, so I end up not leaving reviews. That's intimidation. I mean, not physical intimidation, but it's an intimidating process. And so therefore, that is a bad onboarding experience in terms of getting you to adopt that particular feature set. Support learning and mastery at the point of need. Pretty simple. Best example I could find was I was in Gmail on the web browser. I was selecting multiple items, and we're all kind of used to that idea that sometimes a web app will let you take desktop-like actions like shift-click, and sometimes they don't, so we're never sure. So what I was doing was I was clicking one at a time in my spammy notifications, and what did they do? They popped up a message at the point of need saying, you can actually just shift-click one and click, or shift-click one, and then shift-click another, and highlight that entire group of items for doing whatever you want to do with it. Share content via different channels to encourage engagement. How many of you work in marketing communications? Anybody? Okay, a few. How many of you as designers work closely with your marketing team to define and help craft the out-of-band, out-of-application communications? Good, because it's important. Because look what they're doing here with this email. Get started right with 4 quick videos. And this is all about the appeal to your aspirational better self. Pretty much the same pattern with proto.io. Build an iOS app prototype in 30 minutes. Oh man, I'm going to be fantastic. So these don't have to just happen in the product, right? These can happen via other channels. Text, I don't know if I'd like that. But email, certainly. We've grown to expect that. And what's the difference between spam and a useful email? The content. It's how you perceive it. And now I will do in the US what we call preaching to the choir. Don't forget the testing. So are there dark patterns in onboarding? Yeah. Let's define dark patterns first. Tricks used in websites and apps that make you buy or sign up for things you didn't mean to. And there's a site, if you're not familiar with it, called darkpatterns.org. I highly recommend it. It's entertaining and educational. It's not my site, but I've relied on it. They have very cleverly categorized different dark patterns, and not just in onboarding. My favorite is privacy zuckering. You are tricked into publicly sharing more information about yourself than you intended to. Yeah. So, now here's an example from a UXer named Dan Schlosser, who he cataloged, and this is about 3 years old, so to be fair to LinkedIn, he cataloged the experience of onboarding from LinkedIn. And if you signed up, I mean, I'm guessing that most of us have had our account for at least 5 or 6 years, and maybe we didn't encounter this particular flow, or maybe some example of it. So, what's happening here is friend spamming and privacy zuckering. It's basically social facilitation grown into a monster. So let's look at it. Here's the page where you get started. It's free, great. Registration takes less than 2 minutes if you do exactly what they want you to. And let's see what they want you to do. So, Typical form, great. Get started by adding your email address. Whoa, what's this? We'll import your address book to suggest connections and help you manage your contacts. Wait a second. What's going to happen now? So watch what happens when you say, okay. It says, oh, you got a Gmail address. We want to connect. I don't know. Manage my contacts? What does that mean exactly? I know there's an information thing there, but that's a little frightening. And here is an interesting question. You can either accept, or if you cancel, did you just bomb out of that whole flow? Did you just waste 5 minutes of your time? I know it's not a lot, but still. So it turns out that you can hit cancel, and look at this very, very misleading error message. We are unable to import your email contacts. No, I didn't let you. It's not that you're unable, it's that I prevented you. Here's where you need to go so that you can just finish signing up and make the decisions about how much commitment you want later. And what are they doing? Dark Patterns calls it confirm shaming. You know, fine, go ahead. If you skip this, you're going to miss out on easily finding people you know on. They might as well say, if you skip this, you're a loser. But it continues. So you get a confirmation email, right? Typical. When you click the call to action in the email, you go back here. Oh, man. So this leads me to the question that my talk ultimately is about, which is this ethical? How many of you feel like this is just kind of natural, trying to get you to adopt? Is this okay? Anybody? I mean, it's okay if you're comfortable with this, because, you know, there are escape hatches. Some people think it's annoying, but not unethical. Some people feel like it's unethical. How many of you feel it's unethical then? Because no one raised your hand. Okay, so a good chunk. Looks like some of you are on the fence, kind of waiting to see what I say. Let's talk about ethics and design. And then, I think, if I got about 5 minutes, what's time? I do have 5 minutes. I have exactly 5 minutes. So I had a realization when I was creating this content and I was thinking about ethics. Nothing I've covered here is covering morality or ethics. It's not that it's immoral or unethical, it's just completely value-free. I've just told you how to do things more effectively, and your product could be the best thing since, oh, I don't know, we say sliced bread sometimes. I prefer my bread unsliced. But this could be for the worst, most invasive app ever. Which, when I stepped back, made me realize, am I helping people or am I giving people the tools to create poor and unethical experiences? Which made me go back and dig into information about ethics to try and understand what they are. Because I have a diploma at home that says Doctor of Philosophy, but I can tell you they did not give me a lot of classes and education in philosophy, so. Experimental design, yes. Philosophy, not so much. So as I was reading, I looked at multiple definitions, and these are just a few. What I learned is that ethics are internal guidelines, kind of our firmware, and I intentionally chose firmware rather than software because it's a lot more hardwired, governing how we treat each other. And this is because I've done cross-cultural research. I realized that ethics are influenced by multiple factors: national culture, religion, upbringing, education, profession. So imagine someone, okay? And they've got a unique upbringing, education, economic status. So three someones in the same professional culture could really have quite different assumptions and ethical standpoints depending on where they are. This person could have grown up kind of in a mixed or blended biculture. This person maybe in another one entirely, and this one entirely in this ethnic culture. And it doesn't just have to be about ethnic culture. I was just looking for a good place to put them on my crazy Venn diagram. Interestingly, ethics determine how we treat the living and the dead. And I put this here to show that each of these different types of funeral processes or rituals, as different as they are, what do they have in common? And by the way, this is, I had to crop this. This is called a sky burial, where in Tibetan and Nepalese culture, you actually prepare the body, you lay it out in the open sky on the mountain, and you let animals come and feed. As weird as that may seem to people from different cultures, all of these are expressions of utmost respect and ethical behavior in these cultures. That's just an aside. Ethics are really interesting because they don't necessarily align with inherently moral or good behavior. And I want to give you an example here. I believe that this applies to most cultures where we've got strong rule of law. So, what's the tension in a defense lawyer, an internal conflict? Criminals are bad, yet all criminals deserve representation. That's basically lawyers balancing their professional ethics with their personal ethics. And I don't know whether this is universal. I suspect it is. What's a primary, if not the primary, ethical guideline for people in organized crime? Respect. I didn't think about that. What's the second one? You guys are coming up with really good ones. Okay, after harming no civilians, come on. That's it. No snitching. No rats. It's an ethical code, but within a very immoral structure. So let's make the assumption that we all want to do right by people. And that's why we're in this job. We feel like things should be better, easier, a better experience. And yet, some of the organizations that employ our designs actually increase human suffering, which, if you work in some of the larger social media companies, you don't have to look far to see the examples. I just did 5 minutes of Googling in Google Scholar and found the source research articles about how social media usage contributes to a host of negative social emotional consequences. And they go on. I really want to get my daughters off of Instagram. I'm not even kidding, because those filters, they warp your body perception. Okay, got about 2 minutes. And let's not forget that it's not just about your intrapersonal, your own feelings. Social media and these applications that amplify our ability to communicate across the world have led to polarized social discourse, destructive social discourse, and violence, not just in the US, around the world. So there's a dark side to persuasive and seductive design and onboarding. So do we have professional ethics? I actually had to look this up, and it turns out that UXPA and IXDA, they do have statement of ethical behavior and ethical guidelines. And here's one from IXDA. What I want to share with you now, though, is something that a lot of people are seeing as the conscience of our profession. Mike Montiero, who runs Mule Design. He says, a designer is responsible for the work they put into the world. Design is a discipline of action. You're responsible for what you put in the world. And while it's certainly impossible to predict how any of your work may be used, it shouldn't be a surprise when work that is meant to hurt someone fulfills its mission. So, that led me to asking the question of myself and you, what good is a frictionless onboarding experience if using the product makes people feel bad? And of course we can ask the question, well, we don't own these decisions, Paul. We're just the design team. We're just the UX people. And this is the definition of an ethical dilemma. We don't have our hands on the financial levers of the organization. We are not the leaders who make these choices. But yet, we can make choices about our own behavior. And so at this point in my research a few months ago, I started looking into ethical frameworks and how people make decisions that either meet or don't meet and match up with their personal sense of ethics. And after all that research, I realized it actually is pretty simple to think about, but hard to do because we need to think about paychecks and paying our bills. So when you find yourself in an ethical, professional dilemma, you really only have two choices, leave or stay, right? And if you're going to leave, find a better fit. If you're going to stay, you should be actively trying to change your organization. As impossible as it may seem, it's not impossible. But if you can't, it's really about returning to step one. This is a very blunt message, and I know it feels like it's impossible to implement, but I've left jobs that I felt were an ethical mismatch for me, and you can do it too. Or you can try to change organizations, which frankly is a lot harder. So I want to leave you with one quote from I didn't use Bertrand Russell, Albert Schweitzer. A person is truly ethical when they obey the compulsion to help all life and shrinks from doing injury. And I believe this describes our field very well. That's all I have for you. I can be contacted about this talk. The department I work for, we do an online master's worldwide. If you want to talk about consulting, building guitars, or whiskey, contact me there.
All right, due to the concern of time, if you have any questions for Paul, you can maybe catch him during lunch.
I actually have an appointment at noon, so I'll be leaving
okay.
soon, but I'll try to come back before the end of the day.
Okay, yeah, so do catch him around if he's around, or you can email him.